Hey, my Legion, how y'all doing today? I'm here today to review two movies and tell you my histories about both of them. First one is the Ed Wood movie called Bride of the Monster, and the second one is a documentary called That Guy Dick Miller about the actor Dick Miller. And the very first movie, like I said, is Bride of the Monster, Ed Wood movie. Now, how I found about Ed Wood movies is I didn't know a whole lot about him growing up. A lot of the information I found about movies I started learning I learned on my own. Dad didn't really help with anything except he said William Cash movies are stupid and American International movies are stupid. I still watch some of them. And I never heard of Ed Wood going. And I remember Fangoria kept talking about this. They were pushing this one place to sell. This is the '80s and stuff. Videotape called Admit One Entertainment, I think. That went out of business. I remember getting a free catalog from them and thinking, boy, these movies are awfully expensive. And they're like public domain movies like Barry at Midnight, Spooks Run Wild, Ghosts on the Loose. I think Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster, that was their biggest title. But I mean, when I got the cat, it said it was sold out completely. Play 9 from Outer Space, Bride of the Monster, and probably some other ones. And I remember they had an interview with them. They said they would never carry the Ed Wood movie that he did called Orgy of the Dead, which is the only one he did in color because they said it for his pornographic element. It's not pornographic. So I knew about a handful of his movies. I remember in AIT buying a very interesting VHS tape called Horrible Horrors, hosted by Zachary the Cool Ghoul. He was a horror movie host I heard everyone talk about, but I'd never seen his shows before. The only horror movies host I knew about or I ever seen was Jim Cook, who was our local horror host. And they never met. I seen a documentary about horror movie hosts. They never mentioned him. Big Chuck and Little John that did stuff from Cleveland. I know them. And also there was a guy dressed like Superman who was super host. I think I was out of Cleveland too. I don't think he was mentioned either on the show. In a documentary. I remember I was going on with my grandmother's in the afternoon. They'd have that show on. And that ran for a while. And then going to Germany, and I saw sometimes, they had so many movies. They had movies that are priced there for collectors, and some are cheaper than others. And they have like big stands of movies. That's back when they were selling a bunch of stuff. And I remember some of them they have like the lower budgeted public domain type movies, and they had and there's two from two different companies. I remember Parade Video had a double feature of, they said horror, of British Intelligence and Black Dragons. Neither one of those are horror movies; they're espionage. Even though Black Dragons have a twist in it that could be considered horror, but that's pushing it. And they both starred. The one starred Boris Karloff, the other starred Bela Lugosi, and the other one was Mr. Moto's Last Warning and Murder by Television, which was kind of like a horror mystery, kind of. It was more like a mystery. And I ended up getting the Peter Lorre one and not getting the other one with Peter Lorre starred Mr. Moto and Bela Lugosi because I had to get Murder by Television. And then the other one was a single movie. And it was Gorgo, which I wanted to see a lot. That was like a giant monster movie set in like Piccadilly Circus with a giant Godzilla type looking monster. It was influenced by Godzilla, I think. And the other one was Bride of the Monster, the Ed Wood movie. I wanted to see both, but I didn't feel like paying to buy both of them. So I just got the one I really wanted to see, was Gorgo. And left Bride of the Monster behind. And then since I learned that Ed Wood has been called, it's just like a blanket statement, the worst director of all time, even though in my opinion Spike Lee is, because I can't stand that guy. And then when he was in Erie, he was a complete jerk. When he talked down, the reporters trying to report, he just kind of rolled his eyes and talked. They said a very somber Spike, no, a real very, very jerk Spike Lee when interviewed. And they said that Playing Nine from Outer Space was the worst movie ever made. And they show clips of that in Zachary's Horror. That's how I found out about that movie. Now, fast forward about a year or so later. The last 5-6 months I was in the military. Um, they had like a TV in the one barracks, and it was in Fort Detrick, Maryland, and it was I think it was Monster Vision, and it was playing Plane 9 from Outer Space being hosted by Penn and Teller. I said, "Wow, I'd like to see that." I watched it, and they said Penn and Teller, like, the big difference is you put two movies together. A movie like Plane 9, which isn't that great, and then a movie like Passage to India, which is supposed to be a very good movie, but you see Passage to India, you don't want to see it more than once. With Plane 9 Outer Space, you want to see it multiple times. I watched it. I thought it was a very ambitious movie. They said movies are so cheap. No cheaper than any other movies I remember seeing in the 50s. You know. Did you ever see Jerry Warden's incredible the Petrified Planet? Or that was really cheap. I've seen some really cheap ones before, but I thought it was very ambitious and I enjoyed it. And then years later, they had I watched it again with Dad. I still liked it. And then since I saw it in Fort Detrick, Maryland, that movie. But I saw the Plane 9 from Outer Space years later in 2011 or 10 or 11, with Dad. The second time, and then there was I remember renting at Platia. They had a video rental place called, I can't remember what it's called, but they had a video rental place. It lasted me a year or so. And they had Glen or Glenda. I decided to rent that, and that was kind of boring. The biggest thing was Ed Wood movies that they might be kind of boring. They might be kind of slow. Even an hour and 3 minutes with Glen or Glenda, it would seem like it would last a long time. It was only okay. I did buy Orgy of the Dead because I was fascinated by what was so dirty about it. And basically all that was, and it was kind of boring too. Basically a couple drives, and then somehow they get lost or something like that, and they arrive. There's all these monsters, the Frankenstein monster. I'm just watching from weird memory. I only seen it once. Most of the movies you only see once. I saw Plane 9 twice. I might see Plane 9 a third time, maybe sometime down the future, maybe. But basically they run it, and then they have like a little bit of dialogue and stuff like that. And then there's like a 5-minute scene of a topless woman dancing. And they have it like every 5 minutes they have another topless woman dancing. And it was okay. I didn't mind that one. But it was still kind of slow and boring, because you only do it so much, And then I remember on Stars, they started playing Night of the Ghouls, another one of his movies. I might have seen 10 minutes of that. I turned it. I didn't watch the whole thing. I should probably watch that eventually. And I finally watched Bride of the Monster. And I should have watched it because I'm a big... I love Bela Lugosi. And this is one he was in Glen or Glenda too, but he was only in somewhat. But he was in this one a lot. Oh, I also forgot to mention, 93, Tim Burton released the movie Ed Wood, which was awesome. It was a wonderful, great movie. And Bride of the Monster had that line that Martin Landau said, "Home, I have no home." And that was the first movie I found that Johnny Depp really is a good actor. Because I didn't really know that much about Johnny Depp. I saw him in Benny and June and Edward Scissorhands. I thought he was just a quirky type of teenage actor or something. I didn't really know. Then, boy, he's a really good actor. And I appreciate him ever since after I saw that movie. Well, anyways, Bride of the Monster. That's my history of Ed Wood, just like I'm going to have to tell you about my history with Dick Miller coming up. Bride of the Monster takes place, there's like this octopus monster that kills this one guy, and the other guy goes to this castle, and it has Bela Lugosi in it, and then Tor Johnson has like his mute that just gets, well, like deaf mute kind of, but he goes, oh, like they walk around like this. It's okay, and then it has like this newspaper thing, the monster strikes again. And they're troubled by this, and it's like in a swamp, and they show like underwater footage of like a little octopus swimming around. Complete different contrast. And basically they have a big thing with the police trying to see what the heck's going on. And this girl goes over to find out what's going on, and then he kidnaps her, and he was going to make her into a creature. Well, he was going to do, like, create a race of Superman who rule the world. Like, he starts laughing. And he calls it, he said, you're going to be Bride of the Atom. So I assume they changed the title from Bride of the Atom to Bride of the Monster. Because, I mean, she's not going to be Bride of the Octopus thing. And then they would throw people in there, and there'd be, like, this fake rubber octopus that had, like, battery operated who moved its arms somewhat. It was okay. It's an hour and 8 minutes. I think it was his attempt to make something like a Universal horror film, which isn't close. But I mean, it drags at parts and is a little bit boring. But I mean, for the most part, it's really good. And it's always cool seeing Bela Lugosi. The best parts is when Tor Johnson gets in a fight with someone. He manhandles him. He knocked this guy out, and he had to pick him and drag across the room. He grabbed his one arm, and he put the other guy's head under his arm and just walked like that. Damn, you're going to kill the guy doing like that. He did it with Bela Lugosi, too. He slammed Bela Lugosi to the ground. I mean, the movie's okay. They say it's a laugh. I didn't think it was laugh riot, too. I mean, the fights with Tor Johnson was funny. But, I mean, I give it a 5.5 out of 10, just cut out great. Well, a 6 out of 10. I would give the movie 5 out of 10, but Bela Lugosi elevates to a 6 out of 10, but it's just a one-time watch for me. So there you have for that one. Next is that guy, Dick Miller. And Amazon Prime is really cool by having all these unusual documentaries, because I didn't know there was a documentary. Well, I found about a documentary about the band Violence on YouTube, the band about the band Death on there. One about rigor mortis, one about the Mentors. It really surprised me, all this stuff. They had another one about rock, death metal, or I reviewed or something. And I'm just surprised all the good stuff they have on there. And they had one about Dick Miller. I found out, but they had one about the Fantastic Four movie that Roger Corman did. For Roger Corman's company. I don't know if he directed, though. I can't remember if Dick Miller was in that one or not. He might have been. But then I saw they had one about, and then one about Kane Hart is fantastic. One about Dick Miller. And I started, Dick Miller's been a ton of movies, mostly American International and New World, and then a bunch of young filmmakers that watched this stuff started casting him in his movies, like Joe Dante. And I seen the guy before, and I really started to recognize him in Gremlins. He was so entertaining, and I was like, wait a minute, who is that guy? It's Dick Miller. And I started watching about it, but hey, that's Dick Miller. Hey, it's Dick Miller again. I think you're a big fan of his. Yeah, I am. I mean, I really noticed him in Gremlins. I think that's one that made it one that stood out, and then I started going back to, I remember this guy. I've seen him before, but I never really thought about it before. And he's always a lot of fun. And then the documentary shows him, filmed in 2015, shows him a lot older with a big, I never seen him like that, big beard and balding head. I usually see him with hair and mostly clean shaven. And he talks about his life. He talks about getting started. He was in the Navy and stuff like that. He wanted to be a writer, and then Roger Corman said, "We don't need writers, we need actors." So okay, I'm an actor. So he was in a Western, the first Western. He played Indian and cowboy in the same movie, I believe. And it talks about all the movies he did with Roger Corman. And then it gets to a point where Roger Corman wasn't in a lot of his movies anymore because he wasn't really casting. He was directing anymore, casting. He's pretty much just behind the scenes or whatever. And then he went in, and then he went to start New World. He brought Dick Miller with him, and he was in a bunch of shows like that too. And he was on TV and stuff. And then he talked about Joe Dante casting in a bunch of movies some movies, Hollywood Boulevard, which I'd never seen. I want to see it, though. It's supposed to be the making of an American International movie or New World Order, Roger Corman movie. It's supposed to be a tongue-in-cheek comedy, but that looks like a lot of fun. I would like to see that. And they talk about, what else? And they talk about, I didn't know he was supposed to be cast to be in, what the hell? Okay. He was supposed to be cast to be in, a movie called Pulp Fiction. Wide movie. Everyone knows about it. And then, I mean, the movie starts, and then he was cut out of the movie. Which I was surprised. Quentin Tarantino went after him and said, "Boy, I'm a big fan of you. I would love to be in one of my movies." And they cut out the scene. I think that'd be like sacrilege, cutting him out of a movie. But I mean, they cut him out of the scene, and then he said he kind of rubbed them the wrong way. He's kind of mad about that. And it starts off with them shooting. At least it goes full circle, like Pulp Fiction movie did. The story wise, and it, like, starts off with them being in a movie called The Cutaways. Him and Abe Vigoda. And it's a short film. I can't. I have to look for it on. I couldn't find it on Amazon. If I can find it, I'd like to see it. And it's about like two guys who were cut out of movies and meeting each other in like some other universe. And I guess Abe Vigoda was cut out of The Conversation with Gene Hackman, a really good movie. And Dick Miller was cut out of Pulp Fiction. I got a short film. I'd like to see it though. I mean, but it's a very cheerful film. It's very enjoyable. And it shows some of his TV work. It's the longest end credits of all, probably for a documentary I've seen, because there's so many credits. He's been in so many movies. So many movies. And he talked about his writing. He was an artist. The drawing he drew was mostly dirty. But I mean, it was interesting. It's a really interesting show. I give it a 10 out of 10. I thought it was fantastic. So I hope you like this review of Bride of the Monster. It includes the history of Ed Wood. And then that guy, Dick Miller, which includes the history of Dick Miller. And I mean, whenever I talked about him, I know he started in Bucket of Blood. I finally saw the movie. Because in the 80s, whenever Jim Cook was hosting, I think they had Bucket of Blood once or twice. I missed it both times. So I ended up buying one that was hosted by Elvira that had a Bucket of Blood on, which is really good. And they said that's probably one of his best work, because that was one of his very few starring roles. I guess he got top billing the World of Satellites, which I didn't see. But they were talking about him in Bucket of Blood. I mean, that's a cult classic. And then I guess he was offered, after that, he was offered to star in Little Shop of Horrors, the 50s one, not the musical. And then a movie that's infamous for being shot in 2 days. And I think I introduced Jack Nicholson. I think that was his first role. And he said that he was pretty much playing the same character. He said he wanted to play a different character, and he wanted to give it to his friend for the starring role. And I said, okay. So I mean, it was interesting. It's a very interesting story, fascinating. I highly recommend this one. It's kind of a feel-good movie too. I mean, if you like movies like I do. So I hope you like this movie, everybody. Till next time, please take care, my legion.